Mr. Birla, thank you very much for accepting the award.
No, it's
And
my privilege entirely.
thank you so much for accepting again. So, the context of this discussion is we have a vision series which we interact with stellar business leaders like yourselves. And the message to entrepreneurs is from your journey and how you build successful businesses, not only in India, but outside the India also. So, many of my questions will be based on that interaction
Sure.
as such. Okay. Indian entrepreneurs are backed by private equity and venture capital as such. Now, fundamentally, that's a new phenomenon in India. In some sense, it's about 20 years old as such. And you had built your business, I presume, without capital, which is risk capital overall. So, as we move forward in the Indian market space, um, what was your experiences on building not only Indian businesses but global businesses without risk capital, and what can entrepreneurs learn from that today?
Well, I think to have risk capital invested in you requires a slightly different kind of method of working, style of working, culture, because timelines typically wouldn't be aligned with our timelines as very long term investors. We've used in terms of financing, largely our focus has been on internal accruals. Cash for us is a very important metric of performance, and strong cash accrual is something that we're very focused on, and therefore, logically speaking, internal accruals has been a big source of funding for us, as has been debt. But having said that, I'll share with you that our debt to EBITDA for the whole group today is less than 1.
Interesting.
So it's not that we're prolific about taking debt. Debt is a last resort. Equity, of course, is even further away. That actually is the last resort. Debt comes before that. Um, our all our investments are with the very long term in mind. You would see that in all of our companies. Most of them are listed, um, and I think the entrepreneurial mindset exists. If you look at our businesses, if you look at the way people operate, that's where the entrepreneurship shines. I think that we are a very highly delegated organization. Our CEOs are highly empowered. We have a good alignment with each of our business leaders about what we want to do with the business, where we want to go, where we don't want to go equally. Uh, and I think that the entrepreneurial spirit of ABG is one of our biggest strengths.
So, I watched one of your interviews where you mentioned that in the paint business, you started 5 paint factories in 9 months. And that's the speed at which entrepreneurs wish to move all the time.
Hmm.
How do you bring speed, agility in such a large business? Because many entrepreneurs obviously are doing it or want to do it as such.
You're right. In fact, we commission our sixth plant in Bengal 6 days from now. So paints has been a very interesting journey. I mean, we kind of introspected about it, studied the sector from basic stuff like how much capacity should we start with, 1 plant, 2 plants, should we build, acquire, if 6 plants or 4 plants or 5 plants, where. Just the choice of location was a big one. We were very clear that when we come into the paints business, we have a right to win. So we are a large player in white cement, and in gray cement, we are the largest in the country by far. And there is an overlap in distribution of both these businesses with paints. So the distribution channel of paints is somewhat similar to, or overlaps to an extent, with that of gray cement and white cement. That's a right to win, which is sort of very important in a business that's been around for 50, 60 years.
60 years, yeah.
We obviously wanted to signal, and we are long term investors, we're here to stay. Uh, when we looked at the industry landscape, there's a huge difference between the number two and the rest, number one and the rest of the players. So we said we must come in with a bang. So 6 plants in about 1.5 years, 40% of the industry's capacity. Like I said, it's an industry that's been around for a very, very long time. So 40% of that capacity is actually pretty large. And it speaks of our intent to be a large player, to be a dominant player, as also to be there for the long run. I think that I'd completely credit the leadership and the team. Uh, my role has been in uh, being a very active participant in the discussion, in the deliberations, to the run up of the business. I think it was my role to articulate what I thought of the paints industry, why I thought this was an opportunity for us, the fit in terms of our strengths, what we brought to the table, gaps in skill sets. Uh, but I think that in this case, uh, the devil has been in the detail,
Hmm.
and the detail, especially on the front of execution, acquiring land, technology, recruiting people, the whole configuration of the 6 plants from the point of view of the logistical distance from different markets, cost of logistics. So I think direction setting, alignment with the team, so that we are all aligned and we're marching in the same direction, very clear about what the goal is. And I think, the quality of execution has been truly outstanding.
And that's leading to speed.
Absolutely. I think alignment is very
Very
important.
important. Yeah.
When there's alignment from me right up to, you know, uh, an engineer on the shop floor, almost, that helps a lot.
Now, the ABG group has also expanded worldwide, and that many of them through acquisitions. In one of your talks, you mentioned something like making presentations beyond the balance sheet. Could you expand on that?
I think this referred to uh, an acquisition we were making in Canada for one of the pulp mills.
Yeah.
And it was, I remember it was in Brunswick. It's an industrial, it's a mill city in the sense that the entire livelihood of people there depended on this pulp mill that we were set to acquire. We weren't really known then, and there was no social media. So this was about, uh, whilst we were and are a household name in India, it was ironic that people didn't know us there, and therefore we had to sell our credentials. We had to tell them who we are, our history, our kind of vision,
And the
our
country's
track
credentials.
record, and in doing that, we were also selling the story of India.
India.
And therefore, we started off with presenting to all the different interest groups, from the workers to the local authorities, and many more such interest groups, uh, talking about India, about our background, what we would do with the mill. We were a strategic player there for the long run, not a transition investors, not a transition investor, what we would do about jobs and all of that. So that was a very different kind of an experience.
And you also mentioned in the same talk which you were giving that people mattered a lot. And many of the Indian conglomerates are not actually acquiring much outside the country. But definitely, entrepreneurs are now growing to a level in our own portfolio. We have two companies who are almost $1 billion revenue each, Lenskart and First Cry. Now, the question is when they go outside the country, some of them are open to acquisitions right now and not just organic growth. Uh, so and you also mentioned that we like to keep the people. And in fact, in the same company, perhaps the CFO got promoted to a CEO as such. So, what is your view on how entrepreneurs who are wanting to go global, how should they address acquisitions from not just a geography expansion or a product expansion, but also from a people point of view? Because that's a very different culture outside the country.
So I think the acceptance of by the people of the company that you're set to acquire is extremely important. It's about tapping into their minds and their hearts. Um, and when we acquired Novelis for $6 billion in, I think it was 2007 or 8, all the different, we had different teams going out to do the due diligence and meeting people. And the one question that was primary in my mind was, how would they react to an Indian company acquiring them? India didn't have the stature it has today in the global world of business. And that to me was a primary concern, because if there was any kind of negativity about an Indian company acquiring them, I
You had
would
to
have
address
backed
it.
off.
Yeah.
Then all the financials, all the business logic would have fallen by the
You would back off.
wayside.
You would back off.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I think the fact that they saw us as long-term investors, willing to put in long-term capital, invest for the long term, and of course learn about our history. By then, we had a track record of making acquisitions, making them work. They also knew that we intended not to change the leadership of the company, and that they had opportunities to also grow with the Aditya Birla Group, not just in their present company, but also in different businesses of the group. So I think they saw authenticity, and that to me was a clinching moment, a criteria for finally deciding to make that acquisition. So I think when you're acquiring a company, you're acquiring not just a business. With the company, there are people who come in. It's very important for them to understand your culture, your values. In fact, one of the first things we do when we acquire a company is to have a workshop for our new employees, talking about, for example, our value system, our articulated values, what they mean. For example, commitment can mean different things in different cultures. So, what we mean by commitment, what non-compliance can lead to, what compliance looks like. I think it's very important to integrate them, at least in terms of the values of the group, if not cultures, because cultures can be different in different parts of the world and different
Values
kinds
have to
of
be the same.
businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our anchor from that point of view is our value system. So people in an acquisition, I think, is the most important thing that one needs to address.
In a similar talk, you also mentioned we are deeply global and unmistakably local. Could you elaborate on what you meant by that?
So I think it's about the need for global companies to become global, which is be global but still remain local. Say, for example, the same company, Novelis, we are putting up a 5 billion, 4.7 billion to be precise, dollar aluminum rolling mill in Alabama in the US. And with that, we are also enabling the setting up or the growth of an entire ecosystem. It's very important to impact local communities, to create jobs,
Positively. Yeah.
uh, lots of social impact initiatives, so that they feel one with you. They feel that this is a company, global or Indian in terms of its birth, but very much local in terms of their understanding of our situation, of our problems, of what value we can provide to them. So I think more so in the last few years, the importance of being local, which is global but still local, has been highlighted and heightened in so many ways.
Interesting. Now, as entrepreneurial companies grow, the founder CEO obviously gets a somewhat removed from the trenches, and then there are multiple businesses, either geographies running either inside the country or outside the country. There seems to be, in some cases by design, in some cases by accident, a corporate headquarter as such. Again, in one of your talks, you mentioned the role of a dynamic corporate center. And it's not just an administrative center which coordinates things, but is also an engine for growth. That would be something very interesting for entrepreneurs who are growing very large today. Love to have your elaboration.
So, classically, businesses which are actually, on the ground, so to speak, and the corporate center, which is in a way removed, at least physically, have some sort of a conflict. Sometimes it's constructive, sometimes it's not so constructive, it's more sort of adversarial. And I think that the corporate center, we have a very activist corporate center. They must understand that they play a staff role. They're a service function or functions uh, to service businesses, and it's very important that they work in a sense of partnership, in tandem. They understand issues that the business faces and enables them to find solutions. So, for example, corporate human resource (HR) is a very important corporate function for
Function.
us, and I think businesses must see them as being enablers, like I said, uh, help in culture setting,
Value systems.
in let's say in finding talent and helping retain talent and developing talent, skilling talent. Uh, so yes, I think that we have used the structure of having a corporate center and different businesses more so because there are so many different businesses across the group. We are a conglomerate. We are diversified at a group level. Also, the fact that our businesses, like I was saying, inherently have different cultures.
Mm.
The demographics in businesses can be different, locations are different, uh, and I think that if well structured, if well thought through, and if there is a sense of partnership between the corporate center and the business, it can be a very productive, partnership. It can be that structure can work beautifully.
And you don't see, I mean, I'm sure there's conflict between businesses and the corporate, especially when they are distant in terms of countries. And that's, how do you solve that conflict? How do you resolve it?
I think it's a, like I said, it's a spirit of partnership.
Partnership.
So the corporate center consists of different corporate functions. They're like an extension of different businesses they work with. So constant travel, interaction, meeting with customers, meeting with their people, and all in collaboration with the business,
Mm.
so that they get a real sense of what the business is all about, what levers for success for the business are, and what's the leverage that they can provide to the business. So it has to be, they have to become an extension of the business. This feeling of being on two sides of the fence has to
Has to
sort
go
of
away.
be,
Yeah.
done away with, and that can only come from an attitude of collaboration.
Let me come back to the entrepreneurial world again. The venture capital, private equity, the entrepreneurs are broadly 75 odd percent of capital which flows in any country in the VCP ecosystem is on technology and technology enabled businesses, which are growing. They have a new product, new technology, new go to market, uh, uh, you know, new revenue model and a new business model. It's yesterday it used to be an or situation, now it's an and situation. What has been the, as a classic, the AVG's interface with this, let's call it a new pillar which is emerging, not just India but perhaps in the US also, as such? And do you see for corporates this new pillars which are emerging in India and outside the country? What do you see the interface? How can corporates benefit from the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and how can entrepreneurs benefit from the corporate learnings and scale which corporates have?
So I don't know if you know, but we have a smallish venture fund called Aditya Birla Ventures. It's run by my son. We hope to grow that in the future. I think that, I've had the chance to, I spent about 3 months, 2 years ago, only with entrepreneurs
Hmm.
who've been invested in by firms such as yours, just to understand their aspiration, their motivation, their ambitions, what makes them tick. And I must say that there was huge learning for me. I think the learning was largely in the space of agility, how they keep their systems nimble, uh, how they ensure that they don't let bureaucracy creep in, uh, and just the way that they ideate, the way of thinking, the wiring, the hardwiring. So it was fascinating for me. It was whole new world for me. I think from me, they probably learned about scale, like you said, and size, and how we do that, in a fairly rapid way and at costs that are globally competitive. Uh, so yeah, I think that for me in particular, it was a hugely steep learning curve for those 3 months. We aren't doing enough with this ecosystem. We are looking at different ways to work with them. One way, of course, is to acquire, the other way is to partner. they bring complementary skills. They bring advantages to us in terms of being in aligned for adjacent sectors. Uh, the only issue there is, like I said earlier, is we're different. We're working on different timelines in terms of investment horizon, uh, which one has to sort of align with, given that we work on very
Longer
long-term
time frames. Yeah.
time frames and they have relatively shorter time frame, which is
Yeah.
their basic charter. Aligning those becomes a challenge, but I think you can partner in different ways. I think that we need to do uh, much more on that front.
In fact, startups by DNA are funded by capital which lasts there for 7 to 10 years, maybe 12 years. And then investors obviously need to exit. And the exit firms take M&A as a big, across the world, actually quite big. In India, it's not very big. I mean, we have done, I think, 14 or 15 M&As in the last 14 years. But I do see in India corporates starting to become interested in M&A so that that time frame integration can happen inside the firm rather than outside the firm as such. That may be
Yeah, I
something.
mean, we as a group are very familiar with M&A.
Yeah.
We've made about 60 acquisitions in the
Acquisitions.
last, I think, 20 years. Uh, for example, we're going to close this year with a cement capacity of 200 million tons,
Hmm.
which is much larger than the entire capacity in the US and Europe. We are the third largest. We will become the third largest, ex China. Uh, and we're very comfortable. Half our capacity of that 200, by the way, is built organically. The other half we've acquired over a period of time, and our success rate in making acquisitions work has been, incredibly high for various reasons. I mean, I won't get into those. So acquisitions, mergers is something that we feel very comfortable with. I think that we have a certain way of looking at acquisitions. For example, do they create value? What exactly do they bring to the table? How are we going to execute in order to achieve what we seek to achieve in making the acquisition, so on and so forth. So yes, I think that acquisitive growth for us has been a hugely
Interesting.
valuable
Yeah.
thing.
And I think you would be one of the most prolific acquirers out of India at this moment.
I think so. I think the Tata Group and us probably
Would
would
be
be.
most, yeah. But now these companies are technology, and I think in earlier discussion you expressed interest in robotics as an example, and AI, and would, and these are all technology companies. So as we move forward, would the ABG Group look at space as an example, or transportation with high tech in marine? That's where many of the new startups are also coming up, apart from
I
AI
doubt
robotics.
very much because I think we'll be pretty much, or rather completely thrown out of our comfort zone.
Hmm.
But I think IoT, AI, uh, all of these make a lot of sense for us,
Okay,
not just as independent business opportunities, but also in terms of embedding them into our
into your
existing
current
businesses.
businesses. Okay.
Uh, so, data centers, AI-driven data centers, uh, green energy, for example, we are more in that kind of space in terms of
In
new
terms of new
ventures.
ventures. Now, just a few more questions. If you look at manufacturing, you have lots of manufacturing units. Uh, Indian entrepreneurs are just now emerging to a scale, especially in the more recent 5 to 7 years, where manufacturing has become a lot more prominent. I won't say still obvious, but a lot of stuff used to be imported from China. In our own portfolio, we have, I think, 6 manufacturing units and over 500 subcontracted units for consumer durables, for robotics, and for some
Contracted by these 6 units.
by these 6 units as such. So that's becoming very large for us. What would you advise entrepreneurs who are scaling on manufacturing, setting up in India, moving, let's say, imports to manufacturing from any country, because that's an investment which has to be made. And that's something which is starting to happen, but it's not a tsunami right now.
I think that India has all that it takes to become a manufacturing hub, if not for the world, for the region for sure.
Hmm.
So if you look back, I can give examples. Auto is a fine example. India has had a history of manufacturing,
Hmm.
let's say in the auto sector, for many decades now. And this includes foreign players who've been here and thrived in India for a very long time. I think that India has the market, of course, it has the skill sets, it will have soon the largest working population anywhere in the world. And I think that in many ways, the intellectual capital of India is of extremely high caliber.
Right.
We've had a large manufacturing base, as you know, across sectors in India, so we're very comfortable with manufacturing. But I think, unlike the perception that there are barriers to setting up manufacturing units in India or ease of business doesn't exist, I think that all of that is in the past. You know, ease of doing business, especially in terms of manufacturing, there are issues that will exist almost in every economy that we are in. So we, set up manufacturing bases in two new economies last year, and in both we had similar issues: environment, land. So I think it's important that an entrepreneur recognizes that Indian issues are not peculiar to India. They're issues that are more or less germane to
Any other part of
setting
the world?
up manufacturing in most parts of the world, if not all of them. So I think I have a great optimism about India becoming a manufacturing hub for the rest of the world.
Excellent. I mean, I think many of the larger companies are seriously looking at it, and of course, you need capital for that. So, that's what entrepreneurs look at private equity people for. Um, if you look at India, there is a billion people who need insurance. There's a billion people who need healthcare. Right now, the penetration is very low. And there's a billion people who need loans at the end of the day in the future. 250 million farmers who need productivity tools on how to increase productivity of farm products on small land holdings. Traders need loans, working capital, etc. In From a VC point of view, we believe technology is the sole solution, along with process, which can enable massive scale in the country. How does a large industrial conglomerate view this solution or this opportunity, like many of the entrepreneurs have viewed?
So, whatever you said speaks to two things. One is scale,
Hmm.
and India obviously offers the kind of scale that very few other large economies can.
Right.
The other is about an aspirational India. So, I think India is way more aspirational and ambitious than it has been ever in the past. And both of those lead to the need for new investments and manufacturing in the services sector. I think that we as Indian industry, in terms of large businesses, have a lot to learn from smaller businesses, from entrepreneurs in particular, about how to use technology to
Scale.
scale, of course, but I think to advantage, let's say, basis consumer insights. So many different fronts, dimensions of business where technology can be used much more creatively than we do just now. I speak at least for us as a group. I think that frankly, we are on a learning curve there. Every business has a mandate to do this. The consumer side is particularly important to us. Scale, we know how to scale,
Sure.
but how to become integrated as a solution provider, as opposed to just providing a product or a service to our customers, and how to use technology to do that. I think that there's a lot that we can learn from entrepreneurs on aspects such as that, and we are very aware of that. And every business is doing something to be able to learn or incorporate startups or in looking at different ways as to how to learn from them.
In fact, data is the new competitive edge. If you see, when we look at, let's say, Lenskart selling to 25, 30 million people over the last 10 years, they have data on myopia across the country. and you go to fitness, CureFit has data on fitness and injuries across the country. Or if you go to First Cry, they have data about birthing across the country. Um, uh, and that data is something which, perhaps in my view, could be a bridge between large conglomerates and entrepreneurial organizations who wish to scale but may not have the capital, but they have the data. It could be 100,000 people on how they behave, or it could be 300,000 people how they behave. And that could be a very interesting interface between large corporations and uh,
I mean, generically speaking, I think you're very correct.
Hmm.
But I think that we as a group are doing fairly well on data collection and churning of data. For example, our financial services businesses.
And we're big in financial
So
services. Yeah.
whether it's health, whether it's life insurance, whether it's just the NBFC, the amount of data that we collect and use, let's say, for cross-selling from one business to the other, from the customers of one to the customers of
Another unit.
or retail, just buying habits and how we use data that we get from just bills that the businesses generates every day, thousands every day, on how to uh, on the impact it can have in merchandising, in merchandising mix, in pricing. So data, I think, is something that's a strength for us. Having said that, I find that startups and entrepreneurial ventures have different ways of collecting data, and I think that they have a different sense of how to piece together that data, how to use that data, and how to do that with speed. So I think that there is some learning that we can have, and these are things that we are acutely aware of, and looking for ways to collaborate with
Entrepreneurs. Yeah.
entrepreneurs. Like I said, there have to be creative solutions around these. Not solutions are not always so obvious.
Yeah.
But yes, they bring strengths on that front that we should be able to learn from them.
Mr. Birla, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure
Thanks,
talking
Sudhir.
to you.
It's been a pleasure for me as well.